This presentation is based on the COVID-19 crisis and how it had majorly impacted the human resources industry, and also how human resources industries managed to overcome the crisis. First and foremost, on the impacts of COVID-19, we have companies imposing terminations on employees. Due to the unforeseen circumstances, companies did not see any liable reason to keep their employees on board, especially for those who could not transition to a work from home setting. So therefore, they were released altogether. Next, negative impacts on recruitment. As opposed to face-to-face settings pre-COVID, there were occasions where the recruitment process was moved online to different functions online as well, and sometimes there could be technical difficulties revolving around the software. Sometimes that would be a little more challenging on companies to conduct the recruitment process online. Next up, we have workforce rearrangements. So again, that includes working from home. It took a while for companies to get used to the setting altogether. Last time before the pandemic, there used to be a hybrid of both face-to-face settings and working from home, and then during COVID-19, it was 100% working from home. It took the employees a while to get used to such arrangements. And linking to that, the employee emotions based on the pandemic and the changes it had to offer them, and also around diversity and inclusion. They've also felt that they were a little left out and isolated during that period, and that really had a bit of a change on their mental health. Now, how human resources departments responded to the issues. Point by point, they started off with working from home arrangements, also known as WFH, and then provided resources for mental health and well-being for employees, especially of those who are majorly affected. Also, technological methods implemented on recruitment and selection, and lastly, tackling the issues based on diversity and inclusion. And each factor will be briefly explained point by point. All right. Firstly, for work from home arrangements, one of the pros of working from home would be that it provided a lot of forms of flexibility for employees, especially of those who had families to look after as well. So they weren't required to be at the office, so they were at home the majority of the time during the pandemic. So they were able to care for their families, whether they had children of young age, or for those who were studying for their exams or whatnot, and also having the family around could also be a form of a sense of comfort for them as well during this unforeseen times. However, some of the cons would be how it all started out during COVID was that there'd be a lack of time provided for a majority of companies to implement work from home arrangements, given that the pandemic came really quickly at companies. Especially when there were times where offices were being shut and everything, there were companies who could not afford to halt operations, and they had to keep working. So that's why work from home arrangements was basically implemented. And there were some employees that were not happy with the restructurings and everything. So that would be one of the cons. And linking to that, it would also prove to have negative effects on the employees, based on mental health as well. And one of the main primary reasons would be employees don't feel productive when working remotely as opposed to face-to-face. Previously, I had mentioned that having family around would also be a good sense of comfort for employees at home. However, they could also be a potential distraction as well, especially when employees are in meetings, like children, like the kids may need assistance with their schoolwork, and also there could be other home matters that they may need to face as well. Next up, we have resources for mental health and well-being. This is generally provided by companies to employees who have who have especially been impacted by COVID-19, and um, and they normally provide resources for employees who also might have lost a loved one during COVID, and also for those who just need the mental support, basically. One good example of this would be that Google distributed $1,000 in USD to each employee during the pandemic in order to acquire some furniture for their home offices, in order for them to feel that they're at the office itself, for them to feel comfortable whilst working from home, and also for them to feel more motivated to provide better results, just regardless of the pandemic. And this is a good way to motivate employees to keep pressing on regardless of any challenges imposed on them, and also to ensure that they are working towards the goals that are set by the companies themselves. Next, we have technology used for recruitment and selection purposes. So this could be used for functions that would generally require human intelligence normally. So a good example of this would be that Amazon actually utilized an automated applicant evaluation system, which selects job applicants with the most potential. So they would headhunt job applicants who would hand in their resumes, and then they'll pick the best looking resumes, and they would compare it with the resumes of the current Amazon employees and see whether it would be a good match for the company itself. And should that be a good match for the company, they would be called in for an interview, and there they'll be deemed whether they'd be successful or not. Whilst this may save a lot of time and money for employees, there could also be times where technology may not be very accurate in their analysis of different applicants. So they could pick out a resume which may not match the standards of Amazon at all. And also this could be based on the lack of skills that they may have, or also potential poor attitudes as well, which need to be factored in as well. And companies do need to be careful on what kind of technology they would be using for recruitment and selection purposes in order to minimize such risks. Lastly, we look at diversity and inclusion. So the main issue was the lack of trust and openness from different cultures. So pre-COVID, everyone was working in the same office together. There was a company culture and everything, and they would work on the same projects together, and also create a sort of bond regardless of cultures. However, with COVID when COVID was in place, everyone was separated, and the company culture for most companies really disintegrated, and also they felt that they could not trust. There was a lack of trust that was built on from there, and also a sense of discomfort as well. So that's why McKinsey and Company issued a statement on how diversity is still important regardless of the pandemic, and they stated that one of the main reasons why employees may feel not at ease would be from working from home. That really reduces the inclusiveness of different employees, especially of those who have just joined the company during the unforeseen times. So they might not feel as welcome to the company as opposed to those who joined before the pandemic. So that is another problem for companies all in all. However, one main point that companies could take note of in order for them to get everyone working together and everything, and everyone being accepting of each other, would be potentially organizing online events as well, and also starting with some icebreakers as well for employees to get to know each other, to get to know one another, and also to ensure that everyone's on the same page when working towards company goals, and everyone has the same ideas and they can collaborate well together from there. To conclude, the solutions that were just stated to tackle the COVID-19 issues, they are still being highly implemented post-pandemic. So we still have work from home arrangements, but that is not due to COVID now. They base it off now. They now base it off flexibility. And speaking of flexibility, it does provide just that, and also better morals amongst companies. So each solution would ensure that companies would have their employees working together and without any sort of conflict or anything. And one of the main points from this would be that COVID-19 would have been viewed as a learning opportunity for future uncertainties that may come back to the human resources industry. And should there be another case like COVID-19, at least the human resources industry would be well prepared for it, knowing what to do from the get-go. That's all. Thank you.